One question. That's all it took. Thomas Massie asked Kash Patel one question about the CS file on Jeffrey Epstein, and the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the most powerful law enforcement official in the United States, started stuttering, not deflecting, not invoking executive privilege, not citing an ongoing investigation, stuttering. But here's what nobody told you about what happened before that question, because the stutter wasn't the story. The story was what Massie had already forced Patel to admit on the record in front of Congress, on camera, in his own words, before he ever got to the CIA. Keep watching, because once you hear what's in those FBI files, the stutter makes complete sense. Here's the setup. The witness, the director of the FBI, has been answering Epstein questions all morning. His answer is always the same structure. The 2006 search warrants were limited. The non-prosecution agreement constrained future investigations. Multiple administrations reviewed the same materials. No credible information to pursue. It is a tight, practiced answer, and it has one structural weakness. It only applies to the Southern District of Florida investigation. The 2006 search warrants, the non-prosecution agreement, all Southern District of Florida, not Southern District of New York. Not the 2019 indictment, not the investigation that produced its own separate file. Massie knows this, and he has been saving it. FBI director, he has been answering Epstein questions all morning. Smooth, controlled, the same answer every time. Number, credible information. Limited search warrants, non-prosecution agreement, case closed. Then Thomas Massie leans forward, and he doesn't do what most members do in these hearings. He doesn't ask a broad question about Epstein policy. He doesn't give Patel room to offer the standard answer he has been giving all morning. He asks about specific documents. Documents he has already read. Documents he knows are in FBI possession. He asks about the files, specifically the FD 302 documents, the FBI's own interview records, the statements taken from victims who cooperated with the Southern District of New York investigation in 2019, the investigation that had nothing to do with the 2006 search warrants, the investigation that had nothing to do with the non-prosecution agreement, the investigation that produced its own separate file. Watch what happens next. Director Patel, I watched your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you. You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to, besides himself? You replied, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. Patel nods. Those constraints you cited, the 2006 search warrants, the non-prosecution agreement, those only apply to the Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to the Southern District of New York. The location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment. Still nodding. Now Massie reads from the file, and listen to every single word of this list. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession. Your possession detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to. Victims including minors. He keeps reading. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals. One Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. Read that list again. A royal prince, Hollywood producer worth hundreds of millions, a rock star, a magician. 6 billionaires. A high-profile government official, a former politician, a car company owner in Italy. These are not vague categories. These are specific enough that the people whose names are in those FBI files know exactly who Massie is describing, and they are listening to this hearing. Think about that for a moment. Somewhere, right now, a royal prince knows whether his name is in those FBI documents. Somewhere a Hollywood producer knows. Somewhere a rock star and a magician and at least 6 billionaires know. They know. The FBI knows. 3 administrations know. And the American public, the people whose tax money funds the FBI, whose government has possessed these documents for years, does not know. That is the gap Massie is describing. Then Massie looks up. We know these people exist in the FBI files. The files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people? This is the moment. Because Patel cannot say the files don't exist. Massie just read from them. He cannot say the victims aren't credible. These are FBI documented statements from cooperating witnesses in a federal prosecution. He cannot invoke the 2006 search warrants. Massie already closed that exit before he asked the question. Every door is locked. Massie spent the first 4 minutes of his time making sure of it. He didn't leave a single exit. No broad question that could be deflected with policy language. No general inquiry that could be answered with institutional talking points. Just specific documents, specific victims, specific names, specific investigations, and the answer Patel gives is extraordinary. Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information. We are working with Congress not only to divulge that information, but any investigations that arise from any credible information will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment. Read that back. He did not say the files don't exist. He did not say the victim's statements are false. He did not say the 20 names aren't in the documents. He confirmed the files exist. He confirmed the FBI is reviewing them. He confirmed no new indictment has been launched. 20 names in FBI possession, documented by cooperating victims. No new indictment. Massie isn't done. So is the loophole here? Is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible? That the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to probable cause? Patel, it's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorneys' offices, from 3 separate administrations, who investigated those same materials. 3 administrations. Republican, Democrat, Republican. All looked at the same files. All looked at the same 20 names. All decided, no new indictment. Think about the political math of that for 1 second. Democrats had every incentive to prosecute powerful Republicans in those files. Republicans had every incentive to prosecute powerful Democrats. Both parties, both with full access to the same victim statements, the same FD 302 documents, the same 20 names. Neither one moved. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. Let that sit for a second. And then Massie asks the question that breaks the hearing open. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you? Watch the answer carefully. Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file, and I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us. Pause. Did you catch that? He didn't say there's no CIA file. He said he's presuming there's a CIA case file. The director of the FBI, the person with the highest domestic law enforcement security clearance in the United States, is presuming whether a CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein exists. Massie catches it immediately. Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? Patel, if there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative leads. If there is such a file, the 4 documents Massie introduced into the record before this exchange tell a different story, and it is worth understanding why Massie introduced these documents first, before any questions, rather than after, because he knew exactly what Patel would say when asked about the CIA. He knew Patel would hedge, would qualify, would invoke interagency processes. So Massie put 4 documents into the congressional record that don't require Patel to say anything. They speak for themselves. Document 1. Jeffrey Epstein's story, where a former federal prosecutor is quoted saying he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. Document 2. What Epstein's bodyguard warned about his CIA connections. Document 3. Epstein's private calendar revealing planned meetings with a CIA chief and an Obama administration official. Document 4. A Wall Street Journal article about Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, former head of Israeli military intelligence, and his 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. 30-6. Not one dinner, not a chance encounter at a conference, not a single meeting that could be explained away as coincidence. 30. Documented meetings between Jeffrey Epstein and the former head of Israeli military intelligence, the man who ran Israel's military intelligence apparatus, Times, and the FBI director is presuming whether a CIA file on Epstein exists. That word, presuming, is doing a lot of work in that sentence, because the director of the FBI does not presume things about major intelligence files. Either the file was disclosed through interagency channels, or it wasn't. Either the CIA shared it, or they didn't. Presuming is not an answer. It is the absence of one. Here's what this hearing actually established. 1. The FBI has documents, its own FD 302 interview, records naming at least 20 men Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims. 2. Those documents came from the 2019 Southern District of New York investigation, the one that is not constrained by the 2006 search warrants or the non-agreement. 3 separate administrations across both parties have reviewed those documents and launched no new prosecutions. Think about the political math of that for a moment. Democrats had every incentive to prosecute powerful Republicans connected to Epstein. Republicans had every incentive to prosecute powerful Democrats. Both had the files. Both had the 20 names. Both had the victim statements. Neither one moved. 4. When asked about the CIA file, the FBI director did not confirm it exists and did not confirm he has seen it. 5. 4. Separate documents entered into the congressional record connect Epstein to intelligence community figures across multiple countries, but there is one more exchange from this hearing that did not get enough attention. Massie asks Patel. Were you present when the AG had the White House event where she released the binders to social media influencers? Patel. I was, yes. So if you are willing to meet with social media influencers, will you meet with the actual victims as well? Patel. The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information. Will you personally meet with them? Patel does not say yes. The FBI released Epstein files to social media influencers at a White House event. The victims whose cooperation produced those documents were not invited, and when asked directly whether he would personally meet with them, the answer was not yes. That is the hearing, not an allegation, not a theory. A congressional record. The names are in the FBI files. Patel confirmed it. He confirmed the files exist. He confirmed the FBI is reviewing them. He confirmed 3 administrations across both parties looked at them and launched no new prosecutions. He confirmed the CIA file question with a word presuming. That answered nothing, and he confirmed that while the FBI was releasing Epstein documents to social media influencers at a White House event, the actual victims whose cooperation produced those documents were not in the room. The question that 3 administrations have refused to answer is why 20 names, documented by cooperating victims in a federal sex trafficking case, have produced 0 new charges. Not 1 indictment, not 1 arrest, not 1 prosecution, 20 names, 3 administrations, 0 charges. Massie asked it directly, on camera, in the permanent record of the United States Congress. The answer was, we looked at it multiple times, no charges. And that answer is now sitting in the transcript alongside the 20 names, the CIA documents, the 36 meetings, and the word presuming, all of it, permanent. For anyone who wants to find it. And here is something else worth sitting with. Virginia Roberts, Jeffrey the victim Massie, specifically named in this hearing, died earlier this year. She spent years fighting in court to force the release of documents, naming the people connected to what was done to her and to other victims. She died before that accounting arrived. The files she was fighting for are still in FBI possession. Names are still unindicted, and the CIA file has still not been confirmed or denied. That is the context in which presuming is not an acceptable answer. That is the hearing. Drop a comment. Do you think the CIA file on Epstein exists? And if it does, do you think Congress will ever actually see it? I genuinely want to know what you think. And if you want every single one of these hearings covered the moment they happen, subscribe, because we are not letting any of this get buried. So what do you think about that exchange? When Thomas Massie asked that one question about the CIA file, and Kash Patel hesitated instead of giving a direct answer, was that just caution? Or does that moment raise bigger questions about what's actually in those files? And if those documents exist, do you think they will ever be fully released to the public? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more breakdowns of the moments that don't get fully explained in mainstream coverage, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Capital Clash so you don't miss what comes next.